So let's move on to the next subject, and this is kind of all tied together today. We talked earlier about how it's hard to predict what the Jets or a team like that are going to do if you don't know what their salary cap ramifications are going to be, and if you don't know what the roster is going to look like. So some of these mock drafts just kind of become a joke. Well, now we're going to talk about some of the latest salary cap cuts, and Lance has had his ear to the grindstone, finding out who's being cut, why they're being cut, how much money is being saved. We've been tracking all of this in some of the articles he's written over at What's on Sports, and we've covered it in detail on this podcast. So if you're listening right now, don't forget to like, subscribe, use the love thing, whatever you guys are doing. Your approval to us is all we seek. We just want you to like us. That's it. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about the latest salary cap cuts.
Okay, so fire away. So we have just spoken about the New York Giants. So apparently they have just released 2 players from the roster. One of them is a wide receiver, Golden Tate, and linebacker, David Mayo. So both of them combined for $8.4 million in cap space for 2021. So the Giants will be saving much money cutting these 2 people. So of course, Golden Tate signed a 4-year deal, but never really lived up to that deal. He was suspended for substance policy, and he was really not the same player when he was on the field.
Yeah.
And for David Mayo, he got injured, was put on injured reserve early in the season because of a torn meniscus, and he was just not the same as well. So Giants saving money by cutting these 2 players.
Yeah, I was always a fan of both of these guys. It's really a shame that that neither one did much for the Giants. And I understand the Giants are in a position right now where they've got to just release people and clear up some cap space. And unfortunately, when you see a guy like these guys, they're probably on what should be on their 3rd contracts. It's hard to see either one of these guys actually finding a job, especially this year with limited budgets out there. So this doesn't shock me at all. Doesn't shock me in the least.
Yeah, I do agree. As always in the NFL, and just like in any a sporting league there is, you are always judged by your last performance. So even though you did well in the middle of your career, but towards your 3rd contract, you essentially did nothing, then that could spell doom for your legacy in the NFL. So apparently this is what happened to both of them. I mean, Golden Tate was one of the more viable receivers early on in his career. Just so happened that Father Time has finally caught up to him, and he has done some not admirable things outside the field. So that's why he was suspended for violation substance policy.
Yeah.
So it would be tough for him to get into an NFL roster again, and even for David Mayo. So I do hope that they have their savings intact, because it would take a while for them to return, if they return at all in the NFL.
Yep. This is going to be a tough year. You're going to see a lot of guys like this that probably in years past would have picked up another contract, would have ended up somewhere with another uniform on, not get that chance. And it's not because they don't have talent. It's not because somebody doesn't believe in them. It's going to be simply because these guys are going to want X amount of dollars, and no one's going to have that money available. Yeah, this cap, I'm so looking forward to seeing what the ramifications of these cap issues are, because you still have people like quarterbacks demanding to make $40 million a year, $38 million a year. Dak Prescott saying he wants Patrick Mahomes money. You cannot possibly think that you could ask for that kind of money in years like this year and what will probably be next year, at least until they sign that new television contract, given the current situation. And it's not that I'm saying the owners are crying poor. It's that I'm saying that these guys are not making the money that they were making. So the cap is coming down. So it's a hard cap. You know the number. Well, we don't know the number yet, but they will know the number, and they can't go over it. So teams are not very likely to commit $7, $8, $10 million to vested veterans just to have them on the roster. They need the cap space. So I think both these guys may very well could be done.
Yeah. And also banking on your statement, I see a lot of 1-year contracts happening this off season, because you don't know how much the salary cap will jump in 2022.
Yeah.
Will it jump extensively, or will it be like the same 10% or 5% increase as with the past seasons? So going into
Well, no, I was going to say, I think if you're a veteran player, that's probably your strategy. Your strategy is, look, just sign me for a year. Give me a 1-year deal anywhere. I know I made $8 million last year. I'll play for 3 this year. I'll play for 2. It's still a boatload of money. It's still way more money than I would get in a real job. Let me get one last bite of the apple. And you know what? If I have a great year this year, I've opened myself up to next year signing another 1 year, another 2 year. Granted, I don't have long-term flexibility in what I'm doing, but I'm still making a ton of money and I'm setting myself up for the future. So some of these guys, they're going to have these hard numbers and say, look, I want 7 or 8 million. I think you're going to be out without a job. I think guys that are smart that say, look, I'll play for 2 or 3 million and I'll be that locker room presence that comes in and teaches your young wide receivers how to play. Or I'll be the guy. And unfortunately, one of the guys you just talked about was just suspended for PEs. So he's probably not the best example, but I'm just saying that there are guys like that could open the door for themselves to continue to play in this league if they're willing to take a pay cut and not say, well, I'm not going to do this for less than $6 million. Because to me, that's losing sight of what reality is. Oh, so you're not willing to do the job for $1 million? Because there's no job in the world I wouldn't do for $1 million. So but of course, no one's ever paid me $7 million to do a job. So I guess I'm speaking from a different perspective. But go ahead, continue.
Okay, so speaking of one bite, Kyle Van Noy is apparently done with the Miami Dolphins after 1 season. So he just signed a 4-year deal with the Dolphins, and it came out of left field that he is apparently being cut by the Dolphins after just 1 season. So he had a stable year in 2020, regarded as one of the veteran presence in the Dolphins defense, if not the emotional leader of that unit. And apparently the Dolphins have seen enough to cut him. And by doing so, they will be saving $9.7 million in cap space. So what do you think about this move, John? Is it the right move for the Dolphins?
Well, I think there's a couple things that need to be said about this. First of all, whoever did this contract, they put together his contract, and his contract was very simple. His contract was 1 year. It was a 5-year deal, or it was a 4-year deal for $50 million. I think it was 4 years, $50 million, which was a really high contract. And it had only 1 year of guaranteed money. So what that means is that only if the Dolphins are in absolutely terrible position and Van Noy has an all-pro year are they going to go into year 2. Now you also look at the roster, and they got a guy named Andrew Van Ginkel or Andrew Van Winkle. I think his name is Ginkel, but I always call him Andrew Van Winkle. Van Ginkel played really, really well. So you're looking at what would have been Van Noy's price tag, which I think was $10 million, $12 million, or you got Van Ginkel, who's playing on a rookie contract. Look, I think teams are making those decisions based off of that. And again, this is another one of those situations where you look at the Dolphins are saying, listen, we can keep Van Noy for another year. He's a good player. He's a great locker room leader. But if we clear some space, we might have an opportunity at Deshaun Watson. If we can clear some space, we can get into the Russell Wilson conversation. And if we can clear some space and something happens with Dak Prescott, we can be in that conversation as well. But if we don't clear space, we can never be in any of these conversations. So if I've got a guy who plays just as good as the other guy, I'm going to let the $10 million guy go. I'm going to clear space, and just so I can be part of the conversation. This is very similar to going shopping with no money in your pocket. So if you got $5 in your pocket and that's all you've got, and you're going out and looking for brand new Nikes tennis shoes that are $100 or more, you're just teasing yourself. Why are you even going? Why are you entering the conversation? You can't afford the shoes. You got $5. So this is the same thing that I think the Dolphins are doing. And I think you're seeing a couple teams do it that are making some small cuts that you're talking about, where you're saying, hey, they have a lot of cap space. Why are they cutting guys? They could actually afford to keep a guy or two. So these guys are either looking at Deshaun Watson or the quarterback situation, or they see other assets that they may be able to get. And they understand the market value of some of these players is going to go down significantly. So a guy like Van Noy, who was signing a $15 million deal before, is going to go out in the market now and find out that there are no $15 deals for Kyle Van Noy. There might be $60 million deals and $7 million deals. So the Dolphins might be saying to themselves, listen, we can make a lateral movement if we want to hire somebody. If we want to bring in another guy, we could probably get the same kind of talent for $5 million and continue to build our roster. So I think it's a smart move by the Dolphins, in my opinion. It's a sucky move because a lot of people are upset because people really like Kyle Van Noy, including a lot of the players and coaches. So people are upset that it's happened, but you have to understand it from a business standpoint. This is the business side of football.
Yeah, that's the sad part of it.
Mm,
You are always judged by your results on the field, your wins, your championships, and whatnot. And apparently, Kyle Van Noy is just collateral damage. I mean, that
mm,
deal is really enormous by his standards, coming from like a 15 million deal to a 50, and guaranteed money of 30 million. So that's an enormous deal for a linebacker. So here's what I see the Dolphins are doing. So they release him, and just like what the Broncos are doing by releasing all sorts of players, they
mm.
are keeping themselves in the conversation, in the play for Deshaun Watson, because they have been floated as one of the potential trade partners of the Texans once the negotiations for Deshaun Watson eventually open. So it's the Jets and the Dolphins. So they are eventually clearing cap space so that they can compensate for the salary that Deshaun Watson has. And another thing that I'm looking at it is that they also have the number 18 draft choice in the 2021 draft. So is it possible that they might go linebacker in that pick, or a defensive lineman or whatsoever? So it just open ups, or like um, puts more direction into their draft strategy coming
Mm.
into the first round.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Look, this is all about, like, in business, you need to be pliable, you need to be flexible, you need to set yourself up in a position where you're able to make moves. And I think the Dolphins are finally running their organization like a football, like an actual business. They're running their
Mhm.
football team like a business, and a business needs to have financial flexibility. I don't think it's a terrible move. I think it's emotionally it's a bad move because, like I said, a lot of fans liked him. You got to love the way Van Noy plays. He's a high motor guy. I think he was top 10 in pressures this year. He was top 10 in win rate this year. So I think he's a good player. I just think they decided we have a player on our roster that is of equal value as far as production wise. We think we can get equal production out of this kid who is playing for a tenth of what you're playing for. We'll stay with the kid, let him develop, and we're going to have to say goodbye to you. Thanks for playing with us. So, what else you got today?
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of saying goodbye, and this is a tough goodbye for the Minnesota Vikings. So
Say
they are letting go of
goodbye.
10-year veteran. Yeah, they're letting go of 10-year veteran Kyle Rudolph, the tight end. So
Mm,
after 10 seasons, Kyle Rudolph will finally be a free agent for the first time in his NFL career. So the release, or the cap cut, will save the Vikings $5.1 million in cap space. So former second round draft pick of the Vikings in 2011, he has played his entire career with the Vikings. And how do you see his NFL career going, John?
they've been talking about cutting Kyle Rudolph for a while now. Like it's really strange that he's actually been able to hold on there. So a couple of years ago, I want to say it was like 2016, he had like 80 or 90 catches. Really good year for Rudolph. He's never really been able to match that. He's really like a 30, 40, 50 catch kind of guy. Last year played 12 games, 28 receptions. Wasn't even the number one tight end that they targeted. They drafted a tight end last year. I think it was a good move by Minnesota to move on from him, especially at that price. But a guy like Rudolph, if he can stay healthy, is a really, really valuable person in the world of the NFL today. You're going to see a team like the Steelers or maybe even the Patriots or somebody like that find value in him and go ahead and actually make a move to sign Kyle Rudolph. Now, it's not going to be for the amount of money that he played for in Minnesota, but again, I think he's a 1 year kind of guy. We'll give you a 1 year deal with a 1 year option. We'll sign you for $4 or $5 million. You can come in. You could be our starting tight end. You could be our extra special second tight end that we bring out every once in a while. He's not an elite athlete. He's not one of those guys, but he's a really good inline blocker. And he's got decent hands. And by all accounts, everything I've ever read about Kyle Rudolph, people actually like him as a locker room player. So it'd be interesting to bring him in somewhere again, going into what today's salary cap is. It'd be very interesting to see where he ends up and what his value is. Do you know what his number was when he got cut? Like how much was his value? Was he like $8 million or something like that?
Yeah, let me check that up. Yeah.
I'll check it up. You can respond real quick.
Well, you wouldn't last 10 years in one franchise if you're not like like a father figure to the younger players, or someone that the community admires. So that's what's going on for Kyle Rudolph. So he has been a warrior for the Vikings for at least a decade, and it's just sad for Minnesota to see somebody like him go. And just like what you mentioned, he's not an elite tight end as right now in this stage of his career, but he would be effective with teams that love their dual tight end sets. So funny you mentioned the
Mm.
New England Patriots. That's because that's one of the destinations that I was thinking, because Bill Belichick loves dual tight end sets. So he could
Yeah.
come in there and he could catch a few balls for a few yards just to move the ball downfield, and of course offer an extra body in blocking whoever their quarterback might be. So that would be an interesting situation also for Kyle Rudolph. Another team that I think he would be of great service, Cincinnati, because one of the
Mm.
problems of Cincinnati last season is, of course, the offensive line blocking for Joe Burrow, and that's how he got this injury. So he could be an extra blocker, and more importantly, he could be like a teacher to these young players in the fold for the Bengals.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. By the way, I just looked it up. Kyle Rudolph was $7.3 million last year. And there's excuse me, a very good chance he retires because his career earnings are $50 million.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, you figure taxes, he probably lost 15 in taxes. Maybe he spent 5 in the last few years. Say he's got 30 million. Let's just say he spent 10 because he's crazy. Let's say he's got 25. The guy's got $25 million in the bank probably right now, somewhere in that neighborhood. And unless his investments are making money, which is very possible, he's got 25 million or more. Does he really want to play football anymore? We'll see. Sometimes you get guys like this. The guy's played 10 years in Minnesota. He's got a home in Minnesota. He's part of the community in Minnesota. Maybe he's got a wife and kids. He doesn't want to move the kids. Does he need to play football anymore? Look, at 30-something years old, put $25 million in my bank, and I think, I'm going to probably just stay there and hang out. And, if I want to still be a part of football, I can get a job in the front office or maybe become a coach or something. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, though.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what's the next stage of his career, though. So speaking of more cuts, more tight ends being released from the NFL, from their teams rather. So New Orleans Saints are releasing a pair of tight ends apparently. So Jared Cook and Josh Hill are not with the New Orleans Saints anymore. And just like what we mentioned time and time again, the Saints have a lot of cuts to do to just go under the cap.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the Jared Cook thing. I know his contract was a lot, but I thought Jared Cook was an integral part of that offense. He's a really good player. So I'm a little shocked by that, to be quite honest with you. But he's a guy that'll find a team. Jared Cook's the kind of player that'll actually find a team. 40 catches, 500 yards, 13.5 yards of reception last year. The year before, 16 yards of reception, 9 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. The guy's an actual integral piece of an offense that can actually really play. And he's one of those tight ends you can split out wide, which is really the whole new thing in the NFL today. He's just a matchup nightmare when you split him out wide or put him in the slot. So interesting that they're letting him go. I wonder where he ends up. I think that's I think that's a more interesting conversation than the Kyle Rudolph one. Kyle Rudolph's play had been slipping slowly but surely. But when you look at somebody like Jared Cook I think can still play.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And Jared Cook can still play at a high level, unlike Kyle Rudolph. Even if you have a single tight end set, he could be that single tight end for you. So it would be interesting where he would land. But could this be a play wherein they cut Cook and also Josh Hill, so that's 2 tight ends? So are the Saints saying that Taysom Hill will be their tight end moving forward? And whoever the quarterback may be, will it be Jameis Winston or maybe Sam Darnold or whatsoever? So could that be the route they are going to by cutting these 2 tight ends?
Well, look, I think a lot of this is, when you talk about the Saints really quick, a lot of this is like the domino effect. So what is Drew Brees going to do? As soon as you find out what Drew Brees is going to do, then you move forward. Then you find out who your quarterback's going to be. And free agency starts in, I think, 10 days or 12 days. So they've got to make a choice like pretty darn quick here. Like, this has to happen really fast. If they don't make this choice really quick, they're going to be in a bad situation. So they've got to decide who their quarterback's going to be. So I don't think Taysom Hill becomes a tight end, though. I think that's where I was going. I think Taysom Hill, look, for me, Taysom Hill has a value as what he is. When you make Taysom Hill your quarterback, you lose that value of what the guy is. And right now, he is a slash. He's a quarterback / running back / wide receiver / tight end / fullback, weapon. He's just a weapon. He's a weapon unlike any other team in the NFL really has right now. So I think he remains that value. I think they try to get him a little more into the offense a little bit.
Mhm.
And I think that in doing so, he gives you this option of like, look, he's not only our backup quarterback, which we don't have to keep a roster spot for a backup quarterback, but that backup quarterback also plays all these other positions. And then you sign a Winston, you trade for a Darnold, then you make that move and you figure it out. That's my opinion. But, if you listen to Sean Payton last year, he said he was the next Steve Young. So, I mean, that's possible. Sean Payton knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, that's possible. And I still believe that Sean Payton will be the best coach to bring out the best in Taysom Hill. He's that kind of coach, and he has proven that regardless of who the quarterback is, he has proven that he can win in the NFL.
Agree. And any more salary cap cuts?
Okay, so final salary cap cut for today. So New York Jets. So New York Jets, despite having a massive salary cap space, so they're still cutting players, and they have just released the defensive lineman Henry Anderson. So he was due $8.2 million this season, and with no guaranteed money. So they saved that entire $8.2 million. So despite the big cap space, the Jets are still shedding money out of their payroll.
That's also interesting. Again, when you see teams with cap space in the positions that they're in, and they're clearing out space, it's because they're trying to buy something. If you're selling all your stuff, it's because you're trying to use the money to buy something, or you got a bill coming due, and that bill coming due very well could be in the form of a big quarterback for a team like the Jets. That would be very, very interesting. I still can't believe that they're on the watch list for Deshaun Watson, that he actually listed the Jets as one of the teams he wants to go to. Like as if he's completely unaware of what he's talking about. It's one of the worst franchises in all of sports. And you're going, yeah, I'd like to go there. That'd be interesting. In a market that's absolutely devastating to people. But whatever.